Welcome back, you guys. It is a known fact that being in a relationship with someone who is narcissistic is absolutely exhausting. It's also a fact that they love codependence. They love someone who is a people pleaser. So it's definitely a lot of work being in a relationship with someone who's narcissistic. You take on way more responsibility than you should. And that responsibility means that you feel the obligation to save them, help them, get them to see that what they're doing is unhealthy or toxic. You want them to change. Now, this way of thinking is unhealthy for anyone, but it's especially very dangerous when you're in a relationship with someone who's narcissistic. This save them mentality, it's going to stem from 4 different places. You could absolutely be a codependent who is empathetic. You could just have codependent tendencies in general, which means that you were raised in environments where the focus was not on you, it was on someone else. Either you were in a very toxic environment, and so you always felt kind of like you're walking on eggshells, like one eye is open. And so that type of environment, being raised in that environment, you learn unconsciously that it is not about me, it is about you. And that becomes the program that you have later on in life when you become an adult. When you mix those things together, you then have a person that absolutely will lack boundaries. They will not have boundaries in relationships. They will not have a lot of standards. There'll be a lot of blurred lines in terms of how a person can behave, treat you, things they can say to you. Now, this isn't about controlling another person, but it is about how you respond when someone does something that you deem disrespectful. The other side of that coin is that sometimes you don't even realize that a behavior is disrespectful because this behavior is just what you've grown up with. It's what you've seen. It's what you've been accustomed to. When you're accustomed to dysfunctional behavior, then you're not going to be able to spot it. Those red flags are not going to be obvious to you because they're not red flags to you because that's actually the flag that you're used to. When all of those things are kind of working against you, you really have a person that has poor self-worth, poor self-esteem. And these are not things, we're not walking around every day saying, oh my God, I have poor self-esteem, I have poor self-worth. But the signs that you really do not have a good sense of self are these kind of traits. Because I'll tell you, someone with a lot of confidence, self-esteem, and self-worth, they understand one really important concept, that it is not their responsibility to fix someone else. They don't take that burden on. They don't want to. They are in their bubble of taking care of themselves. Now, that doesn't mean that they don't help people, but there's a line in which they're now going too far and they're taking on more than they probably should. If you have a lot of empathy or if you're an empath, it doesn't necessarily mean that that equals low self-worth or low self-esteem. Absolutely not. But it definitely means, if it is not used in a healthy way, that you haven't learned how to kind of reel that kindness, giving, you haven't learned how to reel that stuff in. Chances are because you have been in environments, in situations, in relationships with takers, unhealthy people, narcissistic people, things of that sort. Only when you are raised in an environment where your empathy is fostered and your parents knew that you were highly empathetic and they didn't want you to be taken advantage of, that they taught you how to reel that back in. But they can only also really teach you how to do that when they're healthy themselves. So when you're trying to save a narcissist, there are 2 things that you're trying to do. You are trying to change them. Obviously, we want them to be different. Or you want to rescue them. And these things look different. Rescuing them looks like one important thing: excusing their behavior. You only really excuse behavior or this aspect of wanting to rescue them if you obviously love this person, but it's unhealthy love. And you don't realize that. So your view of love and loyalty and what you should be doing as a contributing partner in this relationship is a little twisted. It's not healthy. And it is coming from that codependency, that empathy, all of those things, those lack of boundaries. It's coming from that place. Sometimes people excuse behaviors because they just fear confrontation. They know that if they keep pushing this or if they bring it up whatsoever, they fear being abandoned. They know that it will probably end up leading to some kind of a breakup. and they don't want to follow through and actually go through that process. So what the person will do is they'll excuse the behavior and they'll just convince themselves that something will change at some point, or they'll just suppress how they actually feel. From what I've seen, and I know I've been there as well, there's a lot of people, and tell me if you resonate with this, because I know that was definitely me at points during my life. I saw past the bad behavior, and I feel like I saw that they were kind of wounded, that they didn't really get enough hugs growing up, that they didn't get what they needed. So I kind of saw past, and a lot of people do this, where they see past the toxic behavior and they see to like the soul of a person, which is a beautiful thing, highly empathetic, very sensitive person. And they see that they are, even though they're emulating like bad behavior, that's not them, that them at their core is a good person. So they focus on that and they don't really see the behavior that's happening. So it's not necessarily that they're trying to make excuses for it. They just aren't focusing on it because it's not what they focus on. What ends up happening is when things like an argument happen or a disagreement and they kind of lashed out, instead of acknowledging that they did lash out, or they said something they shouldn't, or they were gaslighting you, or they were manipulating you, you kind of just suppress it and just ignore it. This also ties into the whole fear of confrontation. You might very well, if you are very insecure and have had years of abuse, you might just get gaslit. You might very well think that you caused them to lash out. You might attribute kind of their lashing out to maybe something that they're going through, right? Maybe they had a bad day, maybe they're going through something really difficult in life. And here's the thing, and here we go with the boundaries again, is you're looking at them as a child and not an adult. It sucks that a grown adult didn't learn how to deal with feeling uncomfortable later on in life, but the truth is they didn't. They didn't learn how to handle stress and to deal with things. And this isn't to say that we don't at times lash out on people, that we probably shouldn't. Absolutely, we're human, it is going to happen. But when you do it, usually you feel something. You feel guilt, you feel empathy, you feel bad, you acknowledge what it is that you actually just did. This person, none of that happens. Now, either way, if you decide to just like put that mirror up against this person and they have to be forced to look at themselves, or you do it in like such a gentle way, it does not matter. You could very well just straight up call them out. You could start yelling. You could start dictating how you think they should be behaving and how what they're doing is completely unacceptable. There's going to be one key thing in all of these that never happens with you, is you don't follow through. You don't follow through with your boundaries. You say things, you try to convince them, you want them to change, you want them to see these things. You're trying all these different tactics in order for them to kind of like see it. Now, hear me out. When you're in a romantic relationship, of course you're going to try. Of course you're going to try to go down any different avenue you possibly can to save your relationship. This is either more for the person that blatantly knows they're dealing with someone who's narcissistic, or this is kind of like the aftermath of maybe some things that you're still kind of doing in this relationship that you know, like, okay, this is literally getting me nowhere. Or maybe this is just hindsight looking back going, wow, these are all the things that I did to really try to change this person. And hopefully that gives you a real understanding of the fact that like you can't change anyone and it's not your responsibility to. You're supposed to come into relationships in the relationship and not trying to mold and conform someone to be who you want them to be. And this isn't to say that how they're behaving isn't unhealthy or completely not okay. It very well could be. This is more about you protecting your own energy and understanding that what you're doing is not something that you should be doing. This is protecting your energy. It is not your job. It is your job to learn how to be an empath, if you are one, in a healthy way. It is your job to heal your codependency, your job to work on your boundaries and understand why you struggle with following through, why you fear confrontation, why you fear, saying no to someone, and why you're trying so hard to get this person to be who you want them to be when there's already someone out there who's absolutely the person that you're really looking for. But there's something about this relationship that you just are hanging on to. Usually it's fear, usually it's insecurity, sometimes it's a combination of all these things. And that's what you really have to be focusing on and using your energy to overcome. You trying to change this person is you kind of like living in the hope that a breakthrough is going to happen, that this person's really going to see you, number one, and value you, that they finally get it. Like, I'm a catch. Like, now they're going to change to save this relationship, to be the dad, to be the mom, to be the partner. The hope for a breakthrough is more about denial. It could be cognitive dissonance. It could be, okay, well, at one point I had this great guy, or I had this great girl, this great woman, and that person's gone. And look, just like a death, there's a lot of times when someone passes away that we're in denial that it even happened. Like, at some point we really think we're going to see this person again, that they're going to walk through our door. So what you're going through is the transition of mourning a death. None of this stuff is easy to do. Let me just like put the disclaimer up here. None of this is easy to do or go through. I get it. I've been there. But you definitely have to kind of move on from this aspect of thinking that there is going to be some kind of breakthrough, that this person is going to see the error of their way and that they're going to change. It's just not going to happen. Some people try to be very logical with someone who's narcissistic, not even someone just who's a narcissist, but people in general. They try to get very logical on like, look what you're doing. Look how you're hurting people, or that this is the behavior that you should actually be doing. They're really trying to teach them what good behavior looks like and how you should be behaving in the world, how you should be handling your stress, the things that you should be doing with your life. And what they don't realize is that aside from dealing with someone who's narcissistic, as the sun just completely goes away, but you're dealing with a human being who is going through their own journey. And their own journey, you don't have control over that. There's nothing that you're going to be able to do or say to get this person to acknowledge some things that they may never acknowledge. Using empathy, I think, is probably the next thing. Usually we go to logic, then we go to empathy, and empathy is where your emotion starts coming out. Now you're crying, now you're upset, now you want this person to see how they are hurting everyone else, and not from a logical perspective, from an emotional perspective, but you're trying to use empathy on a person that does not have empathy. So that ain't gonna work. When all else fails, what do most couples end up doing? They go to counseling. They go to couples therapy. You might be able to get this person to start acknowledging some things, because now you have a third party in there, and now it's kind of like 2 against 1. If something is very black and white, blatantly obvious that you shouldn't be doing this, or behaviors and things of that sort. But again, you're also, the next step in therapy is to change. And change does not come easy to someone who doesn't want to change. I wanted you guys to see, are there some things that you're still doing in this relationship that, I don't want to say you shouldn't be doing, but that are causing you a lot of exhaustion, a lot of pain? Because all these things that we talked about, it's causing you pain. It's not causing this person pain. It might cause them aggravation, because maybe you're just being a little pain in the you know what, and you're bringing these things up all the time, and I don't want to see them. And unless this person has already discarded you, or doesn't want anything to do with you, which could very well be the case, because all of these things will lead to a discard, then not every narcissist is going to just discard you when you do these things, but it's definitely more exhausting for you than it is for them. So I hope this helps to kind of like give you that mindset, that clarity of like, nothing's really going to change. So start to learn maybe some aspects within yourself that you really do need to work on. All these relationships that we have in our lives are meant to teach us things. It's not meant to say, oh my God, I have such low self-esteem and self-worth. Like, maybe, but maybe it's just about understanding that it's not your responsibility to save someone or to get them to see, that their behavior is not okay, or wanting them to change. There was a point where I kind of said, like, who am I? Who am I for thinking that someone else should be behaving in a different way, no matter what that behavior was? That's just the aspect of control that we all want. We all want everyone to believe in what we believe in, think what we think. And when you let go of that need of trying to control everyone, wow, talk about world peace. Talk about everyone having a lot of freedom and not being so angry. So I hope this video helped you kind of like stop, go within, understand the behaviors that you're doing that you need to work on, maybe even having to like learn how to accept some things that you haven't really come to terms with yet. So I hope it helped. If you liked it, please, please, please click that little button down below, hit subscribe. I will see you in the next video. Take care.